Unthinkable traits, doodling in Etruscan, addicts of drugs not yet synthesized, black marketeers of World War III, excisers of telepathic sensitivity, osteopaths of spirit, investigators of infractions denounced by bland paranoid chess players.
What is going on, my freaks, geeks, and free thinkers? This is Mike Romanelli with episode number 34. I'm so excited for this episode. We have a very special guest, but before I bring her in, Clint, what is going on?
Not much. How are you? I'm good. We had a killer show last night. Mark Normand.
Crazy show at the dojo.
2 shows actually, back to back. Yeah, a lot of fun.
Lots of fun last night. Last night felt like a comedy club in the middle of nowhere.
On a Tuesday.
On a Tuesday. Crushed. It was so much fun. Everyone had a great time. We celebrated 420. Hopefully that's going to be a tradition here. It was so much fun. And, yeah, like you said, on a Tuesday, man. But let's not be rude. We have 2 people sitting in the room. Let's say hello to them. I got Mark Steves here with me. He's going to be sitting in on a couple podcasts. What's up, Mark?
How you doing? Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
And we have a very special guest for you guys, Chrissie Mayr. What's going on, Chrissie?
Hi, thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you so much for doing our little show.
Of course, it's not a little show. It's not small. It's thick.
Oh, you're too nice. But no, I'm so excited to have you on. There's so much. I'm sorry that it took a little while to get this thing going, but yeah, I'm just so happy to have you on. There's so many things I want to talk to you about. You would consider yourself a free thinker, right?
I think so. Yeah.
I think you're.
Yeah, I'm too far gone to go back. It's too much out there.
You're definitely a free thinker. That's the kind of too much. Yeah. So you're a free thinker. Right out the gate, what was your red pill? What?
I always thought it was like going to being on Sam Tripoli's podcast last March, but it was a little bit starting to break apart before then. I think a pivotal moment for me was meeting Larry Sharpe, who ran for governor of New York in 2018, and kind of like meeting him and talking about like libertarian ideals and just like having a kind of like cool, accessible politician made me realize like, oh shit, like I can't identify with being a liberal anymore. Like I think even just recently I changed my voter registration from Democrat. So I really identified with that because like, I was right out of college, very, if I came out of college now, I probably would have been woke. I just was like, oh, if you don't like the gays, you're a terrible person. Like I was very like sort of a classic liberal. And then just, going to LA was pretty pivotal, meeting Sam. After that trip, I came home, watched Fall Cabal, watched Out of Shadows, Pizzagate stuff, Pedowood. Like it all like, it all came in, and it was a lot less sleepless nights, but better to know than to not know. And really kind of the last 2 years too, my starting to see how free speech was being it was kind of like slowly but surely being taken away from comedy. That really activated me to like give a shit and like thrust myself into the conversation, because I felt like, well, I can always use the like as a woman excuse, to get people to listen.
The free speech thing is an interesting one. I think we're gonna go down that road, but we can. With the free speech thing, isn't it? It's rough when you have to do when you get into the whole free speech fight. The first thing you say is you're going to fight for shit that people say that you disagree with, you hate, that you don't want to. That's how, that's what it's all about, right? It's like you have to fight for all speech. And that's tricky when we start flipping over stones and seeing shit that people don't, that really don't agree with. And they start saying horrible, terrible things to you because you are exposing different truths, right? At least for myself, you have to step back when they say these horrible things. You're like, oh my, like, what the fuck did you just say about me, my family, and all these? And you have to realize, wait a minute, I can't be a hypocrite. They didn't. If they're keeping it within the free speech model, like, yeah, you can't really what are you gonna do? Go cry to Instagram, cry to Twitter that they're saying mean things, right? So that's a tricky one. But I got into comedy, same thing, because of the whole free speech and silencing people. So that's interesting. I didn't know. What do you think about that? Like,
Yeah, I think it's the reaction you see more so. And I was just talking about this with, I think, like, I just recorded something with Jack Murphy, and it's like you don't see people like, it's only like the radical left that's like, I gotta cancel this person I disagree with, this person can never work again. Whereas like if somebody like in the middle or on the right disagrees with somebody, it's like, okay, I guess I'm just gonna go about my day. And it's like, I don't know if people on the radical left are less happy or they've just been emboldened by like the cancel culture and how good it makes them feel and how much power they feel by like taking somebody out. But you definitely see way more of it happening from the left to somebody in the middle or on the right. And yeah, I think there's a difference between like free speech and like a personal insult. Obviously, like, yeah, I'll be like, yeah, free speech. Like, of course, that means you can insult me, you can whatever. It's, it's like we can talk about beliefs. I just feel like the radical left's response to someone on the right or in the middle talking about beliefs is to then make it personal. Like if they disagree with you politically, more often than not, they're going to make it personal. They're going to be like, oh, you have a fat wife, or oh, you have a retarded kid. Like they'll immediately like just get into your personal life. Whereas people in the middle on the right are like, can't we just talk about the issues? It seems there's a lot of hypocrisy going on that people are sick of.
Yeah. I'm shocked. I didn't realize that you started seeing, looking at life through a different lens so recently. I honestly had no idea. It was just when you hung out with or did Tripoli's podcast. What was it about? I remember
it's all
listening.
Sam's fault. It was because I remember he was
about?
like, "What are you going to talk about?" And I was like, "Well, something easy like aliens." And then once I was there, something about hearing like Tom Hanks' name over and over again. I was like, but he's America's sweetheart. Like, something didn't quite match up for me. And then I started looking into it, and I just, because I didn't know, even when Pizzagate was happening, it was so not on my radar at all. Wow. Like I had heard of it, but I never looked into it. So it was like once your mind is a little bit open, like you're kind of just like, all right, well, anything is possible at this point, Once you understand that your media is lying to you, then it really opens up your whole world. Like you start to consider anything, because once you realize like you're just a person observing the world, you don't have to be that smart to figure out that the media is lying to you. And it's like whenever I don't really try to red pill people so much anymore, but I'll always say like start with Epstein, because at first he was a wild conspiracy theory that was constantly getting shut down, media suppression on, you couldn't report on it, couldn't talk about it. There are people who were denying it, all of that stuff. And then once it came out, it's like, oh, then they tried to really put a lid on it. Like there's still so much more to that story that is being suppressed, like that there are multiple islands and there's so many more people involved. It's global. Yeah.
Yeah. I was red pilled very early on, and so many of my friends, I'm realizing they started questioning more recently. And for me, my stage is I was where I was when a lot of my friends started to really question things, like yourself, you're saying in the last year or a couple years. I realized that everything was fucked and you can't believe the media and it's all programming and MK. I knew about all of it, and I kept it quiet because people thought I was crazy, but I got past the negativity and then somehow shot through into this positive space, and that was like the base of my awakening, was all the horror, and I was already on my way, to understanding that there's just so much more, and there's so much. Really, the main suppression is just how special all of us are. Not me, not you, not Sam Tripoli. How we all are, and they just try to dim that spark. And that's where I was, and that's kind of when I met Sam, and he was a little bit later to the party. Who he is one of our biggest, he's the guy out there. And so I had to kind of come, and then Tommy G and all these people. I had to go come back down and get into that negative mind space. And like you said, I'm not here to red pill anybody. In fact, I hide my beliefs. If it wasn't for Clint and Sam, I wouldn't even be talking on podcasts about this shit. But it's like, you know, enough people our eyes are open. I was always in the closet about this stuff. Like, this is the kind of stuff I'd be like, turn off your phone, we'll go in the back. Yeah. And I would like talk to people years ago. You know, I was I don't get too much into it, but I was under the towers of 9/11 and covered in the dust and all that shit. And
wow.
Yeah, so my eyes were open even before that, but when I realized...
Is that how all the dust got in?
So, when I realized that everyone was lying to me, like they were literally telling me and putting me in therapy, telling me I saw something different than I saw, I just kept my mouth shut and just kept it moving. And then like 5 years later, YouTube or whatever, or however many years it was, comes around, and there's all these documentaries and other officials saying the same thing I was saying that literally got me put into people like, nah, that's not what happened. I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's what I saw, but whatever.
Really? And from what you saw, it looked like controlled demo?
Yeah, without doubt. And I didn't mean to even go there with this, but yeah, that's where it started. And before that, honestly, my red pill moment was I went to when I was first growing up. It was a very mixed neighborhood of all walks of life, and the school system wasn't that great, so my parents put me in Catholic school, and all my friends were black that I went to school with. So I would go to their neighborhoods and just see, back then it was crack and you know, liquor stores, and just a whole different world than when you went 5 minutes down the road to my house. And then also I was in a Catholic school, and these nuns would tell me how my neighbor next door, because he's Indian, is going to burn in the fires of hell. Or the guy across the street's family, who I love, Josh, and he's my friend, well, they're going to burn in the fires of hell because they're Jewish. And I'm like, what? So I started questioning when I was like 8 years old. And then I would go to these neighborhoods and be like, why is there crack in, why are there vials of crack in the fucking leaves when we're playing football and drunks? But then you go down the street, you know what I mean? So I started questioning very early. Like, I didn't trust narratives.
So you didn't judge. You didn't think, oh, these people just love crack. You're like, you started to think, why is there crack in this neighborhood and not mine?
Like, you literally go down the road and it's not there, but it's there, and there's more and honestly, it was more hanging out with. I was really into basketball and hanging out and more in the black community that I would hang out with. Like, they would openly talk about, I guess the word would be conspiracies or whatever. Just, you know, holding people down, and then Rage Against the Machine was a big influence, which now it's like kind of like But, you know, I would go to their shows and you get zines on, you know, people would hand out all these activists, and I would. So I was always hip to it. And then when 9/11 happened, I'm like, okay, yeah. And then there were some personal things also. I was a big rave promoter in the 90s, and I was young, and the press would call me, and I was, in the first couple of times, I was so excited to do an interview, and they were like, be my friend. And then all of a sudden the article would come out and talking about how I was a drug kingpin. I'm like, wait, what?
How you were a drug
literally
kingpin?
Was talking about how I do this because I love music, and I love, like, you know, it had nothing to do with it. And so I realized right away, like, wow, they're scumbags. And I was a 17-year-old kid, and they would trick me and then take these little, so I learned right away that you don't.
Did you mention drugs at all in that interview?
Well, I mean, there was a bunch of arrests, so I'm sure I mentioned it, but everything I was saying was that people were there for the music, and of course there's going to be, in groups, there's drugs. I mean, this is when you're talking about, it's a different world now compared to then. Back then, that's another thing that muddied everything up, was just drugs. All drugs were the same, you know. Mushrooms, weed, acid, and heroin, crack were all just lumped together in that era. They were all bad, and it was just, that's a whole nother thing. But yeah, I learned with the media right away. Like, these people were befriending me. I'm talking to them, having interviews with them, and then all of a sudden this article comes out, and it's like,
they're twisting it.
They twisted everything. And it's like, whoa, that's nothing. It's literally the opposite, and they're allowed to do that. And I was just like...
Yeah, so you mistrusted the media at an early age.
At a very early age. And then I just kind of kept my mouth shut. Once 9/11 happened, I just kept my mouth shut, and some people, you know, we would talk, we would have a couple of drinks or whatever, and I would have some conversations with them, and
some people said some things.
Some people would say some things, and I would, and you know, so I would talk to them, and it's funny because some of these people, to this day still will not, that I know will not speak out about all this shit. But myself, I was past it, and I kind of got brought back down into the darkness because so many of my friends started podcasts, comedians, whatever, started coming out talking about it. But I want to I hope all of us start to get back to the positive, because it is, Sam says it, right? Like, conspiracies lead to spirituality. He's so smart. Even though everyone loves to pretend that he's like this dummy, he's so smart, and it's so true that conspiracies and stuff open your eyes, and then you start realizing, and sometimes vice versa. There's a lot of like these yogis and stuff that all of a sudden, like my meditation teacher, she is so down the rabbit hole that I gotta pull her up. She's this older Indian woman, and like she's so deep into Pizzagate and all that stuff right now, where I'm like, just come back, like you were
resurface.
Yeah. So it's I feel like some of the content that you've been putting out, you're getting there, right? I mean, you're on more of the positive side, right? And you're starting to see law of attraction.
You have to be. You have to be positive. Like, I didn't have like I don't know, even before I was red pilled, like I've always been like, I feel better when I'm being positive. Like I didn't have like the worst childhood, but I definitely didn't have like the easiest childhood. It definitely wasn't like white privilege-y or anything like that. Like, didn't have a great relationship with my dad. Like, definitely like it was hard. Like, I feel like I had to do my own work to like reverse the brainwashing from college, and like wasted a lot of years, like just tricked into feminism. And, like, just, I don't know, my 20s were so fucking hard, and just like having trouble keeping a job, having trouble making money. So I think what always has kept me going is like, my sense of humor, and like, okay, I've always been able to make people laugh, and I've always been able to make other people like perk them up. So I always knew I had that skill, and it's just, you got to remember that. And sometimes it takes somebody reminding you, like, you got to look on the bright side, because your thoughts are so powerful. Just like we choose like what to put in our bodies, like what to eat. It's like your thoughts are the same way. Like, you can let things go. Not everything you think has to live up there. You can let some things go, and if like these certain thoughts aren't serving you, like your thoughts are like, your aim, you got to make sure you're pointing in the right direction.
Yeah.
Chrissie, as an older brother to a younger sister, I'm wondering what you mean by tricked into feminism, because I think that's something that, as a woman, a lot of female listeners would love for you to expand upon, because I think that's really, one of the themes I've noticed, that there is this kind of tricking women into a sort of radical feminism that doesn't serve us as a society, as people who want to live in a healthy family. I mean, can you expand on that a little bit more, Chrissie?
And it's not like there's just one way to get tricked. There's so many holes to fall into. Like, there's so many ways to get tricked into feminism, and it has changed over the years. Like, I remember being like maybe 13, 14, 15 years old, and I really wanted to subscribe to like Bitch magazine, or I'd pick one up when I'd go to like a Barnes and Noble or like a Borders Books or something, and I'd be like, ooh, like sassy feminist literature. It would be like, instead of, like Cosmo. And everybody gets into it like different ways. Like, some people get into feminism because they're not like the thin popular girl in high school. Some people, and then they're like, oh, and the more I talk about it, the more I feel like feminism is like a cultural, it's a cult. Like, it's a cultural justification for like lacking like love or validation or something. And instead of like teaching women to be strong in the way that women, I think, are supposed to be strong, it's like, it's almost like you're teaching women to be strong by saying, hey, like, profit off of victimization, which like in the last 15 years has like gone from like not only just women, but like any ethnicity can play this game. If you're trans, you can play this game. It's like the focus on being a victim, and that's where you can get power from, is so damaging and disgusting. It's like, no, we should be teaching like men and women to be strong, like in the ways they're, not that it's all just biology, but like, in the ways in where their strengths already lie. And so that, like, okay, there's high school, it depends. Like, even now, I would say like kids going to high school now are probably more susceptible to like the feminist trap. But for me, like my age group, like I went to college like 2001 to 2005, so that's where I fell into it. Like, I was going to be a studio art minor, and then like I don't know, a class didn't go well, and then I was like, I'm gonna do women's studies. And just all my friends were, it's college. It's like I was like 17 years old when I went to college, and you just don't know. You're a dry sponge.
Yeah.
And you're separated from your family, your support group.
It's so
You're not always like, you're not living in the same house with these people. So it's like you get ideas. You're not going to check in with somebody at the dinner table and be like, oh, I learned this in school today. It's like, no, you're at college for months. Like, it's not going to be months until maybe you get that college kid home and they're talking about what they learned. And at that point, it's like, when you're in college, you pride yourself on like being smarter than your parents, or at least I did. Like my mom went to secretarial school, so I was like, I'm going to be better than her, and she wanted me to be better than me. She wanted all three of us kids to go to college, and I don't think any of us like found like girlfriends or boyfriends in college. I think all three of me, my brother and sister, all kind of had trouble. But like for different reasons. Like my brother was kind of a nerd, and my sister wasn't like a bitchy feminist like me. She just like was kind of an introvert. But so it's an interesting process, because it's like I even remember picking my college because I was like, wow, there's so many cute guys on this campus. Like thinking I'm gonna get a boyfriend. Like, not that I was thinking marriage, but I thought for sure I'm gonna date. I'm gonna get a boyfriend. But like, and I ended up cutting my hair short for springboard diving, not like out of being a feminist, but like it all kind of went together, right? Plus I had like braces in college, so I was not what anybody wanted in college. I was not picked, and maybe there was some of that missing, some of that validation, and I was just like the perfect candidate for it. Like, not a great relationship with my dad, just kind of struggling without a support system in college. And it's a way to like justify your unhappiness, because it's like, oh, it's not your fault. Oh, it's the patriarchy. It's like, it's not XYZ. It's not that like you gained 15 pounds. Like it's the patriarchy. That's why nobody wants to date you. It's not like, or just like, there shouldn't be a ton of pressure on anybody in college to like, date or get married or whatever. But I just, in all the literature, everything was backing it up. So, and when that's who and your friends are all kind of yes-anding it, all your professors. So it took me like really like the rest of my 20s and I didn't start. Yeah. I said, 2018, I started to come around. So it was only 3 years ago. I'm 37 now. So it's like, that's how much time I spent just knocking around in the real world enough to know like, oh, like feminism is such a load of shit, because like the moment you need a shelf hung, you're like, come back. I didn't mean what I said.
All right, hold up. Now. That was great, but I'm so happy that this came to this conversation, because I truly believe, and I know that my guy friends love to fuck with me with this view, but I had a hard trip that made me really reevaluate feminism. And I believe, just like all of it, it was something that was hijacked. And feminism needed to happen. However, it got hijacked, dirtied, and muddied. And women did need to obviously take more power, right? There was a lot of things wrong. However, just like it all, just like every fucking thing that happens here, it got hijacked. Yeah. And it's now everything you were speaking on, where true feminism is claiming female power, divine power, which divine feminine energy, which really is part of this new age of Aquarius and the female rising. However, with all of this muddying it up of feminism and all this bullshit that they're teaching us, and especially women, and getting mad and angry at the wrong things, I truly believe that, I had a really, really hard psychedelic experience. And
recently?
It was actually, the funny thing is we could look up the date, because it was when I was coming to, is when the Women's March was on. And
oh my God. How many days were you out?
It was about a 2-day trip.
The whole march.
No, this was 2000. It had to be around 16, right?
I woke up with a pussy hat on. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I woke up and everyone had pussy hats on. But
you're right. It did get hijacked. Like, I don't think it's healthy to teach. My unhealthy takeaways from feminism was like to hating men, default not needing a man, like default, like embrace being single because it's better than being paired up. And any woman who wants to like pursue being a stay-at-home mom, it's like that's weakness, and strength is from having a career and like, Oh, and also too, it's like I'm there, I'm in college, I'm like my parents are paying for this, like I kind of should use this. I should like have a career, you know. And then the women that would like go to college just to meet a guy and get married, like those women were chastised.
Yeah,
A
right. And then
lot.
here's another thing. Like, here's something that's interesting. So, if everything you just said, right? So, why are feminist views? Why are we so happy and so excited when a man decides to become a woman and dominate in women's sports? To me, that every feminist should be against that,
Yeah.
right?
But they've
Like
lumped it all together.
yeah, but exactly. I mean, come on. So you're saying it's okay for a dude to say, you know what? I want to win that trophy, so let me become a girl, and the feminists are behind it. I mean, come on, that's crazy.
But that, that's just an extreme. I mean, even what Chrissy said previously of like, encouraging women to not stay at home with their children.
Yeah.
I mean, the psychological impact of that on the family unit,
Yes.
on the children. I mean, it all fits into this state model of this is how we co-opt your children away from you and completely indoctrinate them, right? So
Even
think,
to like not want kids, and then it's like, yeah, people get horny, they get knocked up, and there's a lot of things in place that are gonna, they want government to be your daddy, whether
Yeah.
it's like certain places where they put Planned Parenthoods, or maybe certain things that are done to separate like black men from their families.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
Didn't
Oh,
you
it's like you can be a single mom because like, we'll get money out of the baby daddy, or you can get government support. So it's like,
that's it.
yeah,
Independent of the
obviously you don't
state.
want to like force or pressure someone to stay with a guy that is like hurting them or toxic, but I think there should be more like, yeah, maybe try to work it out. Like maybe we should try a little bit harder to work it out, instead of like glamorizing divorce and like glamorizing being a single mom.
And yes, glamorizing that whole
Well,
you
incentivizing it too. I mean, the state it literally incentivizes it with their social programs, and women, speak to each other like, hey, if you break up with your baby daddy, the state will give you a check every month. Like that's the conversation that's being had because the oppression has left people at a level where they're like, yeah, I'll just go with what the state's given me, and that's exactly the hand that they want you to play. Because that's how they laid out the table, right? So I think. Chrissy, I really appreciate this point of view because I think a lot of women need to hear this message and understand that, yes, it is about empowering yourself, but not to the extreme where you disempower the family unit because that's so important to our society's health.
Yeah, Mark.
Yeah, and it's sad because there are a lot of women I think who deep down like they want to be moms, like they want to stay home with their kids,
It's
or
a
they're like,
natural thing.
there's so many different combinations, right? There's like, even me, like right now, I'm like, oh God, maybe it would be nice to have a kid, but I'm like, I don't think I make enough money. Like, I don't even think me and my boyfriend together make enough money. It's like, it sucks that you have to think about that. And I feel like boomers had it the easiest because like they could buy a house for not that much. Like they could get by like one parent working more so than now. And,
the boomers fucked up a lot.
Fucking
They really
boomers,
did.
man.
They did.
And it sucks too. It sucks that women, there's a little bit of brainwashing there. Like you just can't even have feminine traits. Like to be nurturing is to be weak. Like to
Which is
to
such
be coddling.
bullshit. That's such
Right.
bullshit.
You're a
That is
fucking
such
terrible person if you
bullshit.
want to make a sandwich for somebody.
Such bullshit. And is there something wrong, like you said, about hanging up a picture? No, there's nothing wrong. Sending men to go fight which I'm against war, but if there's a war, to send them out there to go hunt. There's nothing wrong. That's who we are. You know what I'm saying? Like my views go so extreme where I know Tommy G and these guys, oh you fucking pussy, but I really believe women should lead the world. They're the mother. If you look at it, it's the mother. Like I think women should be the leaders of this world, and the men should be the fighters. And I know that sounds so. To my guy friends, it sounds so you're so gay, man. And
You're such a beta.
And to the chicks, it's like what. But just think about it. Like I back in the Egyptian times when things were thriving, like women definitely led, and we were probably way more advanced than we were today.
True.
True.
It's like you say that. I think about my brother. Like my brother got an engineering degree, he's a civil engineer, and then just since the pandemic, like just in the last year, has quit his job and is now a full-time stay-at-home dad, which is something I never saw coming. But I look at my sister-in-law, and she's like a boss. Like she She works for like one of the video game companies, and like, yeah, I look at the two of them. I go, okay, like of the two of them, like not that she's not nurturing, but my brother is like just as, very much into that. Like, I think because he wants to be the opposite of my dad, to be totally honest. I think he wants to just be like a fucking awesome dad, totally be there.
Totally get
and
that.
they worked out the math. They were like, you know what? Like after all they spend on childcare, they're like, it just made more sense.
I really
for
get
him to
that,
stop
yes.
working. So I was like, oh man, that's like, you hear that, you go, oh, he's like a beta. But you know what? Like he made a decision that's going to benefit his family. He put his kids first. So like, that's pretty cool. And if they, if it works out for them and she'd rather kind of be working and if he's cool with it and if it doesn't make his dick shrink, you know what I mean? Like if he's feeling fine about it, he'll never listen to this, which is why
it's funny though. It's just like these labels and these things, and if you say certain things, it just fucks people up. But yeah, I mean, like my views on things and how I don't want to upset anyone too much, but yeah, like I truly believe that with this new age of Aquarius coming, it's going to be divine feminine energy is definitely rising. It was ruled by male energy for a while, and we're definitely in this weird.
We did a great job.
Mix up.
Just saying.
Yeah. I know.
Are you saying you had a good run?
Clint's one of those guys. Like, motherfucker.
The trophy's gonna be hung in the gymnasium.
We did such a good job. I mean, it was a long run. Yeah.
Well, shit's gonna get all weird. That's a problem with like just everyone muddying the waters, and I have no problem with real true trans people.
For real, I think the future is she-male.
Yeah, but it's like, but I have no problem with true trans. The ones that are reading stories to your kids and all that stuff, like that's not even real. That is some shit that we're talking. Like any trans person I met was like at the tunnel, like like he or she or however. Well, I know quite a few. Like we were at raves and had lots of fun. Like he does not want to read a book to your kid. He wants to fucking dance when Danny Teneglia is on. Like they don't want to fucking read. Fucking the Bernstein
None of
Bears
us even know who that is.
Yeah, I'm looking up Danny to like right now.
That's just one of the DJs I can remember that always had a lot of trance. But it's like, it's just all this stuff. It's just all this extra shit to get us all pissed off, to fight, to divide. It's all about divide. It's all about what you said, distract, divide. What Mark just said about breaking up the family unit. Like we're talking about earlier on this conversation about the black communities with drug laws and all kinds of things. It's always about breaking up the family. Because when a family has a symbiotic relationship, then you create a great child. And when you create a great child, you start changing the world, because you got to change the world by changing yourself. And that is just, everyone is just too hung up on on all this shit, man. And it's like, I'm so happy that people are awakening, but I want them to just, there's certain stuff maybe we can change, but hey, once you get the message, hang up the phone. That was fuck.
Sorry.
One of the psychedelic. And I always used to say that was so stupid because he was talking about acid.
Timothy
no,
Leary?
it was not Huxley. God, I'm sorry about that one.
But
right. Anyway, I'll get. But I always say it was the dumbest fucking. It was so stupid. It was like, no, you just got to keep. It was more about acid or whatever, or just psychedelics. Was like once you get the message, don't keep going. And as I get older, it's like I totally can relate with that. But I'm hoping the same thing with all my friends that are getting red pilled. It's like, okay, take in as much of this, all the elites and what they're doing and all stuff. Okay, figure that out, how the media is fucking brainwashing you, all that shit. But put it to the side and realize that there's so many things like health and your mind, and there's so many
keeping
other things.
Your body strong, like making your fucking bed, and that's what's like, I have to keep reminding myself of, like, okay, am I spending more time like tweeting bullshit and like with my head in the clouds than I am actually improving my physical life and the people around me?
And that's done on purpose to keep you up there. And it's hard for my friends that are comedians. I know it's hard, especially with Twitter and all that stuff. And so, and even for me, just having a club and a restaurant with social media, like, it's hard. You got to keep up with it. You got to do it. But it's kind of mixing both. But just regardless, you got to focus on yourself. Like, I really believe we are towards the end of an era. And that's why all this chaos, all this weirdness is happening, because something great's happening. I don't know if anybody in this room right now is going to witness what's great that's coming. We will, because, in my opinion, this is Mike speaking, we keep coming back and back and back, so we will. But something great is about to happen, and it's just the end. It's just like...
In this, like, physical form, you mean?
Yeah.
Will we see it?
Yeah, I don't know if I will. I feel like my kids or maybe my grandkids
Next
will.
That
life.
sucks. That means the rest of our lives are like, meh.
Nah, for me, I
Okay.
feel like I feel like I've always
Meh.
known. I feel like I've always known that I was gonna have to go through some shit and just help people.
Did
first
you
to
feel
scrape-
like that too? Like, have you guys ever seen what the hell is it? 12 Monkeys.
Yeah, of course.
I think so. Yeah.
That's
it's a
what I was
movie.
always.
Brad Pitt. I've been Brad Pitt my whole life.
Yeah,
Not looking, but that guy in that
yeah,
movie.
Yeah, freaking out.
Yeah, freaking out, kid. Telling everyone.
Dude, I was always so afraid as a kid that that's what the world was going to come to. We were gonna be locked like underground, like in some weird
Yes.
thing where the government sits over us and asks us questions to go to the surface and fucking, you know what I mean? I'm like, God, that seems horrible. And that's even why as a younger person I was like, I don't really want to have kids because the world seems to be getting worse and worse, and I'm like, I'm just going to bring them into this shit show like late.
I know. I used to think that way, but now I'm like, ooh, there's something really cool about like bringing a kid into the world and like making them as dope as possible. And now you have another fighter out there, you know?
That's true.
And,
feel
and
like that's
how,
what it is
how,
right now.
You know, how better to change the world than that? I mean, I think that is the idea. Is like you can only change yourself, and your kids are an image of yourself, a reflection of you. So you can really just do the best you can to, not make the same mistakes your parents did, and also use all this, wisdom you've been gaining. I think it's accelerated now with the internet. I don't know how, kids are going to be in 20 years. I think they're going to be,
I think it'd be amazing.
geniuses.
It can-
I think they're gonna be
compared to us.
amazing.
Yeah, but it can go two ways, right? Because they can either get sucked into the
Some will, man.
the whatever you want to call it, or I do agree with you guys. It's exponentially more people kind of with their eyes open and awake, not woke.
Another thing got hijacked.
You
It's a
know,
term.
but
I'm
my
gonna take it
point is
back.
more people now are awake.
Yeah.
I was just drawing, like, basically saying, not. I don't mean woke. I mean
No, I know,
awake.
I know, but yeah.
Whereas
I know.
they're actually like, this is actually how the world kind of is or should be, and why isn't it like that than there was 20 years ago, for sure.
Yeah. I mean,
It's a good trend, at least.
It's like the illusion has been amped up and we can feel it,
Yeah, I
So
think it's
that's-
so blatant with it being bombarded with it everywhere, and seeing blatant examples of like them just being like, guess what, you can't say that here, or like, oh, that's fine, whatever, like the Maxine Waters deal, right?
Oh God,
Yo,
yeah, she's so disgusting.
That's the most inflammatory. You haven't seen that?
No, I know. I'm giving you
That's
the look 'cause I'm
super.
like, oh, dude,
But my
I'll-
point
I'm
is,
fucking with you.
it's super I'm just pointing out the
You're right. No,
hypocrisy.
you're right. I know.
That's super inflammatory. And if you're calling people out, I don't care what you think. You should be like, okay, that's a little far, even if you are on that side, right?
Mm-hmm.
But people don't. And it's amazing, and that goes on both sides.
It
People
does.
don't call out their own side's bullshit.
I feel like, well, yeah, that's true. There's definitely sides that are just so blind or whatever. But there's a lot of we call them sheep, right? There's so many sheep, but there's so many awake. And I feel like we were talking about boomers before too. Boomers, it's so easy to be like, these millennials, these kids. I'm sorry, I keep meeting these 20-somethings, and these motherfuckers, the ones that are coming into my world, that I'm meeting, are amazing. they get it, they understand. Like, they don't we think because we watch it, because we were programmed that way. We're MTV kids. We watch the TV when we come home. That's what you do when you're done with work. You put on that fucking TV. These kids don't even fucking turn it on. It's the internet. They're talking, at least the ones that I'm meeting, especially when I was doing all that work with the medicines. A lot of them were 21, 22, these young kids. And now with the podcasting and the comedy, I'm meeting all of these younger people that, if you look at the media, if you look at everything, the boomers, it's just all of their fault. It's all them. They're bad. They're spoiled. They're this. They're that. It's like, what? It's more of it's more the boomers. I would say some of my, I'm 40, me, and then especially 30 to 40. They are definitely out of touch. Those are the boomers' kids, but it's not fair to keep just saying these kids.
Of course,
I think these kids
like
are gonna change the
millennials
fucking
and more
world.
so Gen Z, it's like you have more autonomy over your media consumption. So maybe that's why it feels like, oh, you meet Gen Z, like, oh, they grow up so quick. It's like, okay, it's not always, and of course, like, it's not always porn to blame. But like when I was growing up, it's like you watched TV in the living room. If you didn't like Married with Children, you had to go. Like there was no me wanting to watch whatever I wanted. You know, it was like we were either watching Seinfeld or Married with Children or The Simpsons or like the news, which I was always tuning out, or I was like doodling or doing my homework or whatever, playing with Barbies. There was no like, oh, I'm into watching like other people play video games, and then you just like my boyfriend's 10-year-old, like there's just more opportunity for him to like, oh, I like this, I'm going to spend more time watching this.
Not something that was manufactured, like meant to disrupt all the shit we're talking about. And I think that's another thing getting away. The internet, Sam hit the nail on the head so many times. The internet's got away from them. Feminism's gotten away. It's all getting away. And I'm not as crazy as this world is getting. I'm still going to stay fucking positive. I really am. And I think that there's ways of doing this. There's ways you can get crazy and you can be a little too much, and then you get too close to the sun, you're gonna burn. But if you put out a good message and you just guide some of this younger generation in the right direction, I know 30 years from now, maybe 50 years from now, this world is gonna be insane. It's gonna be
I think a big takeaway is changing the way you feel about like legacy media or like the legacy news or whatever, because it used to be like, oh, I have to keep watching because I have to be in the know. I can't not be in the know. I have to know what's going on. It's like that is not being in the know. Like that is the willful participation in a distraction. And it's like, but you get tricked at first. You're like, oh, I have to know what's going on. And it's like, no, like, this is the thing sucking you away from your life.
Yes.
And there's no amount of like media consumption that's going to make you feel like, okay, I'm good, I'm up to date. Like that's why I feel for sometimes like the Tim Pools or like these YouTubers that their job is to like constantly comment on the news, and they have to be plugged into it 24/7. Because I'm just like, oh, it must be so hard to take a break, where I feel lucky to just like, oh, I do interviews, I talk to people, I make people laugh. I don't have to be like so close to the sun all the time.
Wow, you said something else that, Chrissie, that I stopped watching the news. So I'm far from perfect person, but like I've gotten close to understanding shit, right? So, but I got caught up in it, and right around the election time, I was like a robot. I'd wake up from a hard day of work here, make coffee, watch the news, and I just all of a sudden turned miserable. My energy dropped. I was consumed. I do not open up this laptop. I do not watch the news ever anymore, and I'm so much happier.
And you're not missing anything.
I'm not missing anything.
It's an illusion. It's an illusion that they're creating. So it's like, once you realize like, oh, I'm not uninformed, it's like, no, you're just choosing peace over chaos.
Yeah. I mean, last night I got, after a great night of shows here, I went home and I was like, oh, I guess that whole George Floyd, Derek Chauvin thing, the verdict came out. And so I was like, let me just put on all of the channels. And I had it in the background while I was just kind of like looking through Instagram and going over what happened here through the night. And my vibration just lowered, and right away I was like, I could just feel it. I could just feel that fucking the programming, that energy just coming through. And it's like, yeah. And then you gotta remember, there's so many, the younger kids, they don't do that. They, like you said, they just go to, they go check the content they want. They're not glued to a television at all, which is awesome. I mean, there's other things you can get them, and listen, as far as things get away from them, the powers that be are going to figure out other ways to hook them in. It's not like it's this perfect thing. But I really, truly am positive and do think that we are headed into something amazing.
And I really feel like I don't know, it's one of these things I just like feel in my bones to be true, that they are so drastically underreporting the amount of people that are not getting the vaccine. You know? Like,
or
I just think all those numbers are bullshit. Of course, all that too. But they're trying to make it seem like it's such a tiny minority of weirdos that don't want to get the jab.
Yeah. Or discuss it. What about that? Let's just break it even down. Maybe you want to do it. Maybe you don't want to do it. Why? How is that anyone's fucking business?
Yeah.
Safety, the same way they push everything else.
But there's laws in place that protect your medical information,
Yeah, bro, but it's for other people's safety. Although you can go around, and it's been documented, people going around with HIV and fucking people and infecting them on purpose.
Yeah, wow.
But there's no
Wow. Well,
there's no disclosure there, because of their privacy. It's just, it's manipulation of us, basically.
yeah, I mean, that it's. I
they're
just
trying
think
to,
it's so rude.
and that's getting away from them too. At one point, they probably got very excited about the idea. Ooh, the people are going to think that they can't travel without this,
Yeah.
But they
Yeah.
know that that's gone. They know that like so many states are out of their control, and they can't say that anymore. But what they can say is, guess what? Fully vaccinated people can travel freely in the U.S. It's like, you fucking morons! Like, we already knew that. We don't need you giving permission for shit. But it's like,
Yeah.
if they can frame it that way, maybe they can get that person on the fence to be like, who's
Right.
stupid, who'd be like, oh, I can travel freely? Okay.
You know what? To not even say that you have to have it. I mean, what she's saying is I haven't heard it worded that way, but it's really smart if they do it, because they're basically like, we're just suggesting that they can. They're
Yeah.
not telling you that you can't. Yep. Even but
It's like
people
they're
are just,
closing the hole so that you
Yeah.
only like see that,
Yeah.
just a little bit.
It's literally just like sheep, cattle,
Hey,
whatever.
a bus passed the shop today,
Mhm.
and there was where the ad would be on the side. It literally just said, it was black, and in all red, it just said COVID, 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 COVID.
Yeah.
Over and over down the side, and I'm like, what the fuck? What does that do exactly?
In case you forgot about it.
Like, oh my goodness. What a ridiculous,
That's weird.
Before all
super
this
weird. If you don't think you're being programmed at this
Who
point,
sponsored that? Moderna, Johnson and
bro,
Johnson.
exactly. Like, what is going on? Who paid for that?
Yeah.
before all this shit, there was ads for diseases. You remember there was shingles ads.
Oh yeah,
Like,
because
what?
just so you could get your medication.
It was like,
for
hey,
You didn't know you might have.
You
shingles.
might have shingles. Like, it was like this. I was like, what the? It's a fucking ad for a disease.
Go outside. Check the front of the house. Yeah.
Like, what the fuck? Yeah.
Oh my God, it's covered in it. Yeah.
My theory is still that surfers don't have shingles,
That's safe.
just because it's salt water.
Safe bet.
Period. I mean,
Hey.
but we don't want to tell
Write that-
everybody that.
You know yourself.
Oh, do you want to
Yeah,
hit
hit
that?
it.
I wasn't looking for a laugh. That was wrong one.
Oh, and now you really. There you go.
All right.
Chrissy, I do have a couple
I
of
didn't know you guys were holding back on the soundboard. This
I
whole time.
forget I have them all the time, and then I'm like, oh yeah.
some people did want to talk about being a female in comedy. They knew you were coming on and asked some questions. What are your thoughts? Is it
You know, it's
obviously
hard.
a
I think
lot
I'm going to go
harder?
back to being a man in comedy. I've decided.
That's how you identify. We can't
There
do
you go,
anything
yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, so I try not to consume too many podcasts, and you had Natalie on, so Natalie Como, and she's my friend, so I was like, let me watch this, and I felt so sad. Like,
Really?
yeah, I did, because
What
when
made you feel sad?
Because you guys were talking about just these creeps and what you have to go through, and like I know you two. You two are really fucking funny, and I get it. I'm new to comedy. I've been putting on shows for almost 4 years now, and I've run restaurants forever. And the way the restaurants are here is the way my father set them up 40 years ago. In the beginning, it was a lot of women that worked, and apparently that was something different when he started. Like, it was mostly a man thing, and so he started putting like female bartenders, and apparently that was like like I said, 40 years ago. So I always just grew up.
Like, wait a minute, they have tits.
Yeah. So he was totally like, but I always just grew up around really very, very pretty, or all types of just young women. So I always just came into it like, this is a family, like that's it, and I never disrespected women that way, never thought about my power, like, oh, I have your schedule and all that stuff, and
You should try it.
should try it one
Fun.
time.
Yeah.
I'm a little too old for it now, but
You're
But-
never too old.
but when I hear about all the shit that you guys have to, it's already definitely hard enough to be a female comic, and then when you guys were talking about like different creeps that will book you or try to book you or all that stuff, it just, I don't know, it just sucks.
I don't know. I kind of like that it's hard. I think I've, even when I was a normie with a day job, that was hard too. It's like I remember I worked at this all boys private prep school on the Upper East Side, and then the gym teacher was hitting on me and like bitching, oh, why won't you friend me on Facebook? And And then they fired my boss. And then the next person they hired was the gym teacher's wife to be my new boss. And then mysteriously, I was then phased out, not too, soon after. So I don't know. Everything's kind of been hard. Nothing is easy. If comedy was easy, everybody would do it, men and women combined. And I only think it's hard to be a female comic because it's just the circumstances are not female friendly. And I don't mean just like it's late nights, it's the road stuff. It's like most normal women, they're smart and they're like, I gotta have a family and I gotta really start looking in my early 20s. And I was like dumb and never got that got that message. And I just was like, I'm gonna do improv, I'm gonna be funny, I'm gonna be silly, I'm gonna like hang out with weirdos. And then and I remember I would hear my mom's voice, Chrissie, you're wasting the best dating years of your life. She was right, but I don't know, I had fun. I don't regret it. I think everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
And I think especially now with like podcasting, it's more like I am getting more of a message out there, and I feel like maybe creating some sort of community. But most women don't want to just fucking, it's a huge time commitment. It is not glamorous. It's if you want to meet, you're not putting yourself in a situation where you're going to meet a successful, probably, unless you're like, oh, I'm going to, hook up with like a Louis C.K. I don't know why that's my example, but you're like, I'm going to find a much more famous, richer comic. And but most women that are like, oh, I want to find a provider, a protector, you know what I mean? Like, you're probably not going to find that in another dude comic. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I would get advice from when I used to work at this hedge fund, they would be like, oh no, we're going to the husband store after work. Do you want to come? I think I was like 23 or 24, and I'd be like, what? I'm going to improv. But they were going to go hang out at steakhouses with their tits out. Like, that's what women are doing. There's very few women that are like, oh, I have this disease called comedy that I have to deal with. The road is not a place you want to be. It's like dirty, it's gross, it's like, and it's like you don't, like, I started at 26. Like, that's,
wow.
If you want to have a kid, you only have so many years. So I think that's why a lot of women either don't get in it, or they're like, they don't stay in it because they're like, all right.
I mean, it's the hardest. It's the hard. I've dealt with working in all different types of art forms, and it's definitely, it looks the easiest. It's the hardest by far. What you guys have to go through it's crazy.
And that's the thing, is like, you do have to deal with like a big amount of like sexual harassment, but sometimes like that's what gives you the edge. Like, sometimes like you do get spots because the booker has a crush on you. Sometimes you do get this or that show because it's like, and that, and it's like, you don't want to take advantage, you don't want to like lead anybody on, but it's like, all right, it's good to be liked and whatever, you know what I mean? I've booked people just because I've liked their personality. Years ago, I booked people just like, I booked dudes just because I thought they were cute. So it's like, everyone's got their advantage. Everyone's got their privilege.
We're putting it
like,
out there.
There's a female privilege. There's a black privilege. There's a white privilege. There's a nerd privilege.
Yeah.
So
For sure. There's privilege for everything, right?
But wouldn't you say across life in general, like, there's creeps? Like, you're probably,
of course, there's creeps everywhere. Like,
you've just cranked the volume up and you're in front of more people.
If you're looking for a creep-free existence, it's like, you're not gonna be attracted to stand up. You're gonna be like, I'm gonna work at the bank.
Yeah.
And
there'll still be creeps at the bank.
Exactly.
Wear pants. Yeah.
And there'll still be.
But that's the thing, is like, and it's there's such a fine line between like,
you'll just know how much money they have.
Good attention and there's been creeps who I've enjoyed their creepiness. Everybody's different. Like, I
guess I'm being
one
judgy.
woman's creepiness is another woman's like, wow, thank you. I'm gonna walk by this construction site every day.
Yes, girls do like creepiness.
I guess I'm all right. I'm out of
Some
touch
do.
on this one. I'm sorry.
Not all of them.
Yeah, I just like to not creep chicks out, and I just like to book funny people. And I think, Chrissie, you're very funny. Natalie's very funny, and it's weird. I'm like waiting for some ugly funny chicks, because that's what I'm supposed to have here. But none of the chicks here are ugly that are funny.
Is that where their requests in the suggestion box?
Yeah, it's like you make sure they're ugly.
Yeah, less intimidating women comedians.
For some reason, on the East Coast, we have very attractive or very good-looking, funny women.
But you know what it is too? There's plenty of unattractive female comics, but they're like woke and lefty, and they're probably not going to be attracted to your spot. You know, they're not. They're going to be. They're in Brooklyn right now. They're like, you know,
Yeah,
on a rooftop somewhere in Brooklyn. They're not going to be like at your club.
They're masked up on the roof.
Yeah.
That's so weird to me.
I
'cause
seen it.
Comedy is just supposed to be like, I don't know. It's so weird. It's not supposed to fit into any narrative. It's just supposed to be funny. It's literally that simple. Just be funny.
Yeah, you're supposed to be anti-authority. You're supposed to be like anti the man, not the
Yeah.
man,
Yeah,
or any man,
yes.
but just like anti-power,
Punk
anti like
rock, like-
establishment. Yeah.
Yes.
And like woke comedy to me seems like Christian rap.
Well, you know, it's like
You're like, what?
It's like that theater element that's never really anti-establishment, you know? Like you see that with like the theater kids, the theater school people going into comedy, they have their own clique.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's where you see the social justice, because those folks, they have that mindset of like, oh, nothing's really gone bad for me. My parents are helping me with school, and now I'm in theater, and I'm just performing, and I'm, I'm
it's
a
more
little
artsy
butterfly.
people. You're right,
Yeah.
for sure.
You know?
That
Oh,
they
yeah.
could have gone improv or acting or
Right.
comedy.
Right.
or
Comedy was just the one where you got to smoke more pot and do more drugs. Right.
Yeah. Chrissie.
Yeah, and then you're not. There's a lack of diversity in comedy because, like, a lot of people who can, you're doing stand up either because you're totally okay with roughing it and eating ramen, like living off of no money, being disgusting, sleeping on floors and couches. It's like that, or you have rich parents, or it's something in between the two where you keep a day job and you split your time. So it's like you have this group of people who work extremely hard, and then people who've had it very easy merging together.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting to
And they're
see.
all a little bit fucked up.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Just a little bit damaged.
That's why I
in
love
some
it.
way
I mean, that's
or
why
another.
I love it. 'Cause
That's
like,
probably why
the
I
island of
relate with them.
misfit toys. I'm one of them. But yeah, I mean, I do love the brokenness because, that's just why that's my tribe. Chrissie, this is amazing. I got to run because we have something coming up soon. But I'm obviously, where can people find you? Even though I'm pretty sure anybody that's listening already knows who you are. But where can everyone find you?
Oh yeah. I do a podcast called the Chrissie Mayr Podcasts. New episodes come out every Tuesday through Friday on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud. Wet Spot is my sex dating relationship show, Mondays 7:30 p.m. Eastern on Compound Media. And then follow me on all the things at Chrissie Mayr. My Instagram got nuked, so new Instagram is Chrissie Mayr Pod, and that's it.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having
Thank
me.
you,
guys.
Chrissie.
Thank you.
Love you. Bye.